Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome out to Market Mornings with Rob. Obviously, this is not the right header, but that's all I had. I wanted to get the disclaimer on there. So, uh, my name's Tony Benson, and Rob asked me to fill in this morning for him, so I am happy to do it. But let me get the disclaimer out of the way. I am not a registered broker dealer investment advisor. I will not give you any recommendations or advice. Everything we do here is purely for educational purposes. If I do happen to mention a trade, just assume it is a paper trade or practice trade. For regulatory reasons, we do not discuss funded trading. So I'm going to show you the ones that I've got on my list for this week. In fact, if you haven't experienced weekly whispers yet, that is this will be a little sneak peek of what I do. So I've got about 9 right now that are checkmarked. These are my favorites. So here is ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, a descending triangle. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit there. So looking for it to break that. What is it, about 84? If it breaks 84, I'm expecting it to go down to about 80. So hopefully that plays out. We shall see. It's always hard to tell, right? There's never 100% certainty what's going to go on. That's why we use stops, right? This is CrowdStrike Holdings. It's obviously been beat down pretty bad, dropped from 200 down to 100 in just, 6 months or so. So it's been cut in half. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little rally out of it. And the market does seem to have a little bullish tint to it. It really seems to want to go up. So even though I think overall we're still in a bear market, I think we may have it's starting to look like we may have a rally for a short time, whether it's a month or two, maybe 3 to 6, possibly halfway through the year. But the big picture data is still looking a little bit iffy. So hard to tell. I mean, that can always change and things can turn around. Who knows? But a little miniature inverted head and shoulders here on CrowdStrike. So we'll see if it breaks above that neckline. Looking for a move from about 108 up to about 118. Of course, it could always continue to run and take off and go to 145. It's always the possibility, right? That's what you hope for, right? Delta Airlines, let me zoom back a little bit here. This is a nice, beautiful little pennant pattern. Big, giant flagpole, right? Little pennant. And if it breaks north of here, if it breaks north of 40, we're probably going to run up to about 44 or so. That's the previous resistance, which is very solid. So if I pull the trigger on this, then I will definitely be exiting somewhere around here because I wouldn't expect it to continue higher. DDOG this is just a kind of a little base. It's a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders. It's not spectacularly beautiful, but it's kind of there. I just basically looked for a solid support or resistance level, which is about 76. If it breaks north and continues, I think it's got a decent likelihood of going to 85. So, and keep in mind, we are in the middle of earnings season, right? And next week is when it really heats up. We get a lot of stuff coming out. So, Microsoft just came out yesterday, I think it was. Amazon is that out next week? A lot of other big names. I think Google's next week, I think. Yeah, Google and Amazon are both on the same day next week. So remember that we are in earnings season. So some of these things can change. Make sure you check the earnings dates on a trade if you're going to do it. If it's coming up in 3 days, you might want to reconsider. It just depends on what you're looking to do, right? Macy's, we have a nice little ascending triangle on Macy's. So if it breaks north of that about 24 area, looking for it possibly to run up to about 27. Nike, this is a little small. That Delta pennant was nice, right? This one's not as spectacular, I don't think. The flagpole's not quite as steep or as beautiful. I don't think there's as much momentum behind it. But there is still the possibility that this continues to run if it breaks out to the north side. So looking for a run from about 131 up to almost 140. C Limited. Forgive the cough. It's still lingering around. I'm trying to get rid of it. This is kind of it's an inverted head and shoulders. I don't like. This is not a bad slope. On a neckline, I don't like a slope on it. But if it's going to be sloped, a little slope's okay. A steep slope is really not that great. Some of them have that. In fact, I think Walmart here in just a second is going to have a steeper slope that I like. But that doesn't mean I won't trade it. It just means that I don't think the pattern's quite as strong or the potential for a move is not quite as strong. So instead of not trading it, I just will trade less, right? It's one way to, because obviously as traders, one thing we deal with all the time is fear. And if you look at a stock, I'm not sure if it's going to move, well, then you can still trade it. Just don't do as many contracts. Even just do one. Who cares? Because then at least if it moves, if it does what the pattern says it's going to do, at least you get something out of it, right? At least you don't walk away with nothing. So that's one way to control fear. Is just make a smaller size. So But yeah, I don't love the inverted head and shoulders. It's not bad. But if it does break north, this has got a lot of potential though too. That's the one thing I like about it. Right? We're looking at, the neckline comes in about 67. The target is 89. So the actual entry point, the 3-to-1 entry point, I should say, is at 71.72, which gives me 18 points of upside, which is almost a 30% move, which is massive, right? So in this case, obviously with the 30% upside, you've got a significant amount of risk too, right? Risk, reward. So you got to account for that too. And this is another one of those cases where if you just did one contract and it moves 30%, let's say you pay $5 for the contract, it's probably going to be $15 when you sell it. You're going to get about a triple, maybe even 4 times. Who knows? It just depends. But volatile stocks like this can pay off big time. But you'll see that little dash line, that orange one at 68.90, because there's such a big potential and there's such a big range from the entry point to the stop, which is basically 6 points. I don't like having that much risk out there, even though there's a lot of potential. So a lot of times what I will do, and let me zoom in a little further here, is I'll dip my toe in the water, right? This is another thing you can do to deal with fear. It's one thing I talk about, the mindset of section of Weekly Whispers is another way to deal with fear, is scale into it, right? You don't go to a strange pool or a strange bottle of water and just dive in head first without checking to see if the water's warm or if it's deep enough, right? You always test it. So why not test the water on this? Who knows if it's going to move? So I'll dip my toe in the water right here at 68.90, maybe pick up just 1 or 2 contracts. And then if it continues to run, then I'll add to it. And then by the time I get here, I'm already ahead of the game, right? If it does come up and trigger this and entry and I only get 1 or 2 contracts and then I stop out, how much is that? 69, 60? That's only $3 of risk. That's half as much risk as I have if I wait for it to hit 71.72. So if it runs up and hits this and then turns around and gives me a false breakout, it costs me half as much as it would have before. Does that make sense? So keep that in mind. Something to do to manage your fear. And then Toast, nice ascending triangle on this. It's been building a nice base for quite some time. These guys are not that old, on the public market at least. I don't even know. I'm not sure. I think this is a tech stock, is it not? I'm not sure what they do. What I am sure of is that this is a nice looking pattern. And it's been building this for a while, right? In that 22 and a half area is a very solid resistance. So if it does break north of that, whoops. Trying to get a little closer. There we go. If it does break north of that, we got some room up to about 28. This is another one I like. And you'll notice I've got a toe dipper in there, if you will. Because 23.65 to 22.60, that's what, $1.40 on a $24 stock is quite a bit percentage-wise. But we've got the potential to run to almost 27. So that's a $4 move on a $22 stock. That's almost 20%, right? So that's got some good potential. But this is another one right above 23. I would stick my toe in the water and pick up just a small position. And last but not least, Wally World. Wally World has a nice head and shoulders on it. This is what I was talking about earlier, the steep lines, and this is not terrible. If it's like this, I will totally ignore it. At this point right now, Walmart is looking really solid. There's my cat. She's crazy. She thinks she's a dog. She's playing fetch all the time. It's nuts. Anyway, so yeah, this right now is in perfect position. If it falls from here, I will definitely be taking a chunk of that at 141.48. Practice trade, of course, right? That's all we talk about here. But yeah, it's a good looking pattern. So we shall see how this all plays out. So that's it. That's a little taste of the Weekly Whispers that I do every single week. So if you're a subscriber, then you'll see this later today. And if you're not, then I would suggest you check it out. And you can have this every single week I got 26 this week on my list. So these are all candidates. I've done all the analysis. I've set the trading plans up. All you have to do then is focus on wearing the hat of the trader and not analyst. So anyway, hope you all have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend. God bless. Bye-bye.